Welcome. In this video I'm going to show you how you can perform a C-square test using R. I'm using JupyterLab with an R kernel with version 4.3, but this should also work in, for example, RStudio. This video will focus on how to obtain the output, not so much if you should or how to interpret it. It's actually an improvement over the Brunner-Munzel test. The example data I've already loaded. It's from some student survey or survey among some students. And the ordinal field I'm going to be using is the mixed number of activities, which as you can see is not numerical. So I also put in some coding or at least a vector with the appropriate order. In a separate video I show you that my own library actually simply has a function for this, but if you don't want to use my library, then we can do it the more difficult way. Is first I'm then selecting the two fields that I'm interested in and get rid of any missing values. Then we replace all the scores with the numeric counterparts. So now we simply have for the genders the different scores 1 to 5, and as you can see there were no females who scored it 4 or 5. Then I'm going to separate the two categories and their scores, and also have one long vector with all of the scores in it. The counts of each of those vectors simply obtained by using length, and the grand total as well. Then we need quite some different ranks. We need mid ranks, minimum ranks, and maximum ranks. So the mid ranks takes the average if there's a tie, the minimum ranks takes the lowest one, and the maximum, of course, the highest one. Now luckily the rank function within R actually has a ties method that we can simply use min and max, and the default is actually the average. We do this for each of the two categories separately, but also for the pooled ones. We also need some of the means, so we can calculate the averages, which is simply the sum of those ranks divided by the corresponding sample size. Most of them only for the second category, so I'll put all of those in. And we actually can then calculate this theta, I think it's pronounced, which is simply that we have everything. So the formula might look scary, but we have this sample size, we have this average now. So it's just a matter of filling out the formula. The same goes for this tau. We actually have just about everything that we need, so we can simply calculate that as well. This one is a little bit more simple. It takes the sample size of the first category, multiplies it with that same -1, multiplied with, and then the same for the second category. This is going to be used in the next one. But before that we need the placement values, which is the difference between the pooled mid-rank and the within mid-rank. So we simply select the scores from the pooled data and subtract the corresponding one. And then the average of those is simply the mean. Now we can actually determine also the variance of that. So the sum of squared actually. So we take the value itself of the placement value minus the corresponding mean and square the result. We do this again for both categories. Which brings us to finally the variation estimate, which is this scary big looking formula, but we have everything that's in here. So this simply means to sum up. So that's what's being done here. And we have all these other symbols. We calculated them before, stored the results, so this is our variance. The c-square value, also a pretty long formula, but again we have everything we need for this, so it's just a matter of filling out the formula, and we finally have our c-squared value, in this case 14.59, 523, etc. You could actually also calculate this slightly different, but this is probably the fastest method. This follows the chi-square distribution, so we can say 1 minus to get the right tail, which always has a degrees of freedom of 1. So our p-value in this case becomes 0.000133325. This is usually below the threshold of 0.05, that's the usual threshold. So we would speak of a significant result, could conclude something in the lines of that the two categories think significantly different on the mixed number of activities. Alright, I hope this video was helpful and thank you for watching.